I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Shaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a book club podcast, where we pick a book, read a few chapters, and then talk about it in each episode. Just like a book club. Pretty obvious. So for the first episode, what we decided to do was pick the book that we would be reading for the next few episodes. So we talked with a bunch of our friends, got different suggestions for books that they like, things that they think would be good for this purpose, and came up with a bit of a short list for books that we were interested in and talking about and choosing on the episode. So then we went to Half Price Books.
And we found none of them. So we just kind of went on an improvised list of the authors and a few suggestions from the good Half Price Books themselves. So a few of the books that we ended up choosing, the first one recommended by Half Price Books is Beacon 23 by Hugh Howey. For centuries, men and women have manned lighthouses to ensure the safe passage of ships. It is a lonely job and thankless for the most part, until something goes wrong, until a ship is in distress. In the 23rd century, this job has moved into outer space. A network of beacons allows ships to travel across the Milky Way at many times the speed of light. These beacons are built to be robust. They never break down, and they never fail. At least, they aren't supposed to. With Beacon 21, the best-selling author Hugh Howey delivers a white-knuckling suspense with aliens, war, and madness, all combining in a story of one man living aboard a beacon and his battle against the solitary blackness of space. So, anyway, I thought that sounded awesome. I don't know, it's a very old concept, having like a light beacon, signaling home, but a very futuristic concept, so.
Yeah, it's definitely like a sci-fi. Obviously, it takes place in space, but it's like a like more of a. I mean, what we can assume from the hook, anyways, is that it's just like a sort of a bit of a light sci-fi. Maybe there are aliens or something like that, and that's why one of the beacons goes out. I guess that's something that we find out in the course of the story. But
yeah, I mean, it made it kind of a big deal that they never go out.
It could just be a hard sci-fi thing where it's all humans. Maybe there's an intergalactic war going on with different human civilizations.
Hard sci-fi being...
Hard sci-fi is just when like they follow all the rules of science as much as possible.
Okay,
like The Martian
like
is a hard
Star
sci-fi.
Trek versus a Star Wars.
Star Trek is definitely more hard sci-fi than Star Wars is, but there's still a lot of liberties taken with it.
Okay, I get the point, I think.
Like The Martian is like hard sci-fi.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Interstellar is like a medium to hard sci-fi.
Okay.
Because like it's hard sci-fi in that they do everything right, more or less, except for some things that can't be done correctly in a movie. But then they also take a little bit of liberty because we don't know what the fifth dimension really is like. So, Of course, they have to imagine it some way to visually give it across. But anyways...
to me, it kind of sounds like a bit of a hard sci-fi once you explain it to me. So, just because the beacon sounds so epic, and then once it fails...
Everything like about that hook doesn't have anything fantastical.
Yeah.
Is, I guess, more what I mean.
Yeah, no fantasy,
There's nothing about aliens. There's nothing about having contacted other races or even having found ruins on a planet or something like that. It's just straight up.
This could straight up be
beacon went out.
Yeah, another.
Let's go find out what's going on.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that could be wide open as to how sci-fi and what flavor of sci-fi it is.
Okay, so for the second book, I found it's called Neverwhere. It's by Neil Gaiman. That is an author that has been recommended to me countless times.
Author of American Gods, popular Netflix original series.
Oh, literally what it says on the front cover. That's funny. Okay, and on the bottom it says, in quotes, delightful, invitingly horrific. It draws equally from George Lucas, Monty Python, Doctor Who, and John Milton. Who's John Milton?
Don't know.
Okay. The chimerical stuff of Nightmare and Daydream. USA Today. Cool. Okay, let me read the back. Excellent. Gaiman creates an alternative society beneath London that is engaging, detailed, and fun to explore. The Washington Post Book World. So here's the actual hook, sorry. Richard Mayhew is a young man with a good heart and an ordinary life, which is changing forever when he stops to help a girl he finds bleeding on a London sidewalk. His small act of kindness propels him into a world he never dreamed existed. There are people who fall through the cracks, and Richard has become one of them, and he must learn to survive in this city of shadows and darkness, monsters and saints, murderers and angels, if he is ever to return to the London that he knew. A fantastic story that is both the stuff of dreams and nightmares, said the San Diego Union Tribune. Neil Gaiman's first solo novel has become a touchstone of urban fantasy and a perennial favorite of readers everywhere. Oh, Stephen King, hold on, we gotta read what he said. Gaiman is, simply put, a treasure house of story, and we are lucky to have him. I thought he said still lucky to have him. I was like, it's very Stephen King, so dark. That sounded kind of cool.
Yeah, this one interests me because just like Beacon 23, we don't know its full genre yet. Mm-hmm. It's definitely some kind of fantasy because he falls into like not a parallel world, but like, you know, an underworld. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely some element of magic, but it's taking place in a
like
more
London.
Yeah, it's, you know, an actual place.
Yeah.
It doesn't give any sort of mention to like the time period, right?
I don't think so. I would assume relatively present.
Who knows?
The front looks kind of old school, like judging the book by its cover.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what London looks like at any given second. Just Big Ben and cloudy skies.
Oh, so. It still looks like that.
So it could be, I mean, it could be modern day.
Okay.
It could be 1800s.
Okay.
For all we know, just going off of the cover.
Yeah.
So I think that it'll be interesting to see when it takes place, in addition to, you know, just how fantasy and fantastic it gets.
Definitely.
Because maybe there's fucking elves in the Underdark or wherever the hell he's going.
This one seemed cool too because it was a fantasy and it had a bit of a romantic element, and then it had a bit of a it had a horror element, and then it also had like mystery. I don't know. It seemed like it was combining 4 different genres. That was sort of, and then it's Neil Gaiman who's been, like I said, recommended tons of times. So that's kind of why I jumped at that one when I saw it. Mm-hmm. So these were the 2 selections that I found at the good old Half Price Books. So
I also like the title, Neverwhere.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a good title.
That is a good title.
Never as in never, and where as in a location.
One word.
So we've got one that's science fiction, one that is in the fantasy section, and we'll see how fantastical it gets.
Yeah.
Of the books that I found, the first one that we'll talk about is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I'll just start with the hook that they've got written on the back here. And this is already a word that I don't know how to pronounce because it's a fantasy name. Titelir, capital of Hallandren, is a colorful city by the sea where gaily dressed crowds bustle through sunny streets and worship heroes who have been reborn as gods. Ruled by the silent, mysterious god king, the pantheon is nourished by offerings of breath, the life force that keeps them alive and youthful. Exiled in Idris, the former royal family reluctantly betrothed the princess to the god king. Arriving in Titelir, she finds both the city and the marriage are not at all what she expected. Her only ally is Lightsong, a god who is skeptical of his own divinity, who fears that war with Idris is inevitable. Meanwhile, another new arrival in Titelir, one who bears the sentient sword Nightblood, makes cunning plans based on the unique magic of Hallandren, which uses color to focus the power of breath. Plans that could change the world.
Dude, I like that breath, man. That just sounds cool. I mean, just this is gonna sound cheesy, but like breath is powerful even in real life. Just sitting there, like focusing on your breathing, and it's like it's all they talk about in meditation. It's half of working out. It's half of yoga. It's like when you're stressed out and need to calm down, you're breathing. Like it's very cool that an author wrote like breath as being like a full concept,
like a resource.
Yeah, like that's super cool. Like I didn't realize that when you first pitched that book to me, but that made it sound way cooler.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of new names, so I'm gonna have to take some notes probably while reading. It's gonna be good that we have the weekly talk about it.
Yeah, I picked this one. What I was looking for was a different Brandon Sanderson book, and I just picked this one up whenever I found him in the shelf and didn't see the one I was looking for. I was looking for a book that was like high fantasy to be on our list. So that's primarily why I picked that one.
That's awesome. The front cover too has this cool sword on like on a lady's dress, and her hair is amazing.
I think we can't see it because of the sticker, but it's coming out of her mouth, so I think that's probably the breath.
Oh, that's the breath. Okay, I should have figured that out. Oh, she's got
that's
like white hair behind the sticker. We should have pulled that off.
We should have pulled off these stickers.
Oh, that's a cool cover.
Let's see. And then
judge it.
Second in what I picked went more sci-fi. This one I just saw. It's the size-wise, literal size-wise, it's the largest of the 4 books that we picked, and that's why it stood out to me, because it was just large on the shelf, and so it immediately caught my eye. As basic as that, just like a kid looking at cereal in the cereal aisle. All right, so here's the hook here in the jacket. In 2066, a Caltech intern notices an anomaly from a space telescope. Something is approaching Saturn and decelerating. Space objects don't decelerate. Spaceships do. A flurry of top-level government meetings produce the inescapable conclusion. Whatever built that ship is at least 100 years ahead in both hard and soft technology, and whoever can get their hands on it exclusively and bring it back will have an advantage so large no other nation can compete. A conclusion the Chinese definitely agree with when they find out for themselves. The race is on between 2 countries, and a remarkable adventure begins. An epic tale of courage, treachery, resourcefulness, secrets, surprises, and astonishing discovery as the men and women of a hastily thrown together crew find their strength and wits tested against adversaries of this earth and beyond. What happens is nothing like you expect, and everything you could want from 2 such perfectly matched storytellers.
Dang, dude, I completely forgot about that. And that reminds me how loud of a book reader I am. I'll be sitting there reading by myself and I'll start gasping because something gets me so good. Man, like that was kind of intense listening. Just like it's like a civil world war,
right.
You know, and a race just for future.
It's like exactly, obviously, what will end up happening.
Yeah.
And this book is actually something in that hook kind of caught me off guard because for whatever idiot reason I didn't realize that this is actually a collaboration between 2 authors.
Oh,
this
cool.
is John Sandford and Ctein, Ctein. I guess that's just a pen name because it's not a first and last name. So those are the 2 people authoring this book. But yeah, it's pretty much, you know, what we would imagine would happen if we did find some sort of alien technology, and technology that seems like it's working and for all intents and purposes likely still being controlled by aliens, instead of deciding that we as a planet need to be together in this. No, let's race each other.
Yeah.
So that whoever gets there is, you know, in first place.
Yeah.
Never mind that the aliens might have their own designs.
Exactly. Dude, it's good that it's got the competition of like humans. It's just like that natural racing desire, and it's just it's also funny because it kind of plays off of like the whole like Area 51, like Roswell crash, like how some people like conspiratorially believe that like we took some of that alien spaceship crash technology and that's why we've been able to advance, you know. And that's kind of what this is like we want to race to get it and be better than everybody, but mainly we just want to be stronger than everybody, not even necessarily make things better.
Yeah.
So that just sounds like it could go any way. I can't wait to listen to some of these on audiobook just because I think they're going to be spooky. I mean, that's half the point of this podcast. I mean, Will's into the reading and, reading it from a book. And, dude, I just love listening to a good audiobook narrator. That's always been, like, a secret passion of mine, something I've wanted to do, something. When you hear a good one, it really gets you into the story. And it just, like, when I listen to a good book, I will immediately start it back over and listen to it again. I don't know. I'm excited. I think my favorite of the list actually is probably going to be Warbreaker. I didn't think it would be, but when you read the hook at me again, that sounded super cool with the breath. Gotta hand it to the breath.
I think I'm inclined towards Warbreaker as well, just because the vast majority of all books that I read end up being fantasy books, and usually like high fantasy stuff like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter
Yeah.
Even though Harry Potter is not like super high fantasy.
So what is high fantasy?
High fantasy is like swords and dragons and magic and knights. It would be
like medieval fantasy, or is that similar? Or
that usually is like the most common backdrop for sure. It's like a medieval setting where there's still like, you know, like swords and sorcery sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's usually like the backdrop for like a high fantasy. But you can also have like a high fantasy that takes place like in like an Arabian setting or something like that. It's more just that it's just like super fantastical. You've got like, you know, magical creatures, probably magic. Mm-hmm. There's very likely not any sort of modern weaponry like guns or cannons or anything like that. Sometimes there's like cannons because, you know, cannons have been around for a long time. But
one thing is they might emulate that with the breath. You know, that could be an element that something like that would happen. Like it could be, I don't know, not necessarily a cannon, but they could pick up a pebble and shoot it with their breath. Who knows? I don't even have any clue how they weave their breath. Yeah,
it makes it seem like the breath is just a resource. It's just
not like an airbender.
No, like it's not like a magic. It's not like a mana or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just it just says the gods are nourished by offerings of breath. So the worshippers, you know, offer whatever breath is, which I guess is something that, you know, the book will either tell us relatively soon whenever it's setting the scene, or maybe that's part of a reveal later on.
Yeah.
What the true nature of breath is. It does say something about how the new person that's arriving in Tutelier, who wields the sentient sword Nightblood, makes cunning plans based on the unique magic of Hallandren, which uses color to focus the power of breath. So there is some school of magic or magic ability that somebody has called Hallandren that allows them to focus the power of breath. So maybe breath is like more like the Force, like in Star Wars, where it's just like an all-encompassing thing that's everywhere, and
some people
can be channeled for different means.
Yeah, that'd be fun to find out. I guess the only one that I would challenge that book with would be the Neverwhere, just because Neil Gaiman, and it had all 4 different elements. It had like the fiction, it had the horror, it had the mystery, and I forgot what the 4th one was. I had 4 earlier. It had a lot of good qualities. I don't know, man. I feel like since we both said Warbreaker, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like since we both said Warbreaker, we should just go with our gut. Just don't want to forget about good old Neverwhere right here. These other 2 sound great as well, but might be some we'll have to come back to next book.
I think Neverwinter may be an easier read.
Neverwhere.
If that's what, or Neverwhere, yeah.
Neverwinter's in Dungeons and Dragons, isn't it?
It's in the Forgotten Realms, yes. It's one of the northernmost cities along the Sword Coast.
Ah, yes.
There's also a series of games.
Yeah.
And the Dungeons and Dragons games that came out forever ago.
Dude, okay, so just here, flip to a page in Neverwhere. Just read a page in Neverwhere. Read some of it out loud, and we'll see how it sounds. We'll see if it's like how hard it sounds to read, and then we'll start narrowing it down between the 2, because that one sounds long and it sounds good.
I'll read a short excerpt from page 251. The bolts were drawn back. 2 loud bangs echoed through the room. The door to the tiny shrine was pushed open, letting in lamplight from the hall outside. It was a small room with a high-arched ceiling. A silver key hung from a thread, attached to the highest point of the ceiling. The wind caused by the opening of the door made the key swing back and forth, and then spin slowly. First one way, and then the other. The abbot held brother Fuliginus's arm.
Brother Fuliginus?
Fuliginus, yeah, that must be it. Held brother Fuliginus's arm, and the 2 men walked into the shrine, side by side. Then the abbot let go of the brother's arm and said, "Take the body, brother Fuliginus."
Need you continue, brother Fuliginus? I think we have our novel. Here, let me do your book since you did mine. I'll do a fun page from your book, and I'll sell it. I'll do my best, my Billy Mays. All right. This is an excerpt from Warbreaker, page 285. He leaned against the banister. "The things I believed," he said. "I don't know that they'd make sense, or that you'd even hear me out if I told you about them. You claim to seek money, she said, but you don't. I've seen Lennox's ledgers. He wasn't paying you that much, not as much as I'd assumed by far. And if you'd wanted, you could have hit that priest's carriage and taken all the money. You could have stolen it twice as easily as you did the salt. He didn't respond. That sounded actually kind of cool. I got a little into it, sorry. That kind of made me want to read that one now. I'm so flip-floppy. Okay, this might have to go to Destiny.
To Destiny? How does Destiny decide?
Oh, Destiny decides with a quarter.
Okay.
Do you got one? Do you have a quarter?
I'm sure that I have one over here by the bar.
My boy Willio is going to get himself a quarter, and then we're gonna decide. I'm going to make the executive decision because I'm the one next to the microphone. That Warbreaker is heads, and Neverwhere is tails. All right, guys, keep your fingers crossed because whichever book you want out of the two, you just gotta leave it up to destiny. Believe, and it will be the one that you want it to be, unless, you're listening to this.
Okay, went and got ourselves a United States of America $quarter.
Oh.
This one, in fact, has a very nice little picture. Instead of the eagle that's typically on the back, this is a depiction of the Battle of Saratoga where the British surrendered in 1777.
Okay.
This was, I guess, minted in 2015.
God bless America.
Just so that you have a full picture of what Destiny takes its shape as.
Okay, and you heard me, right? Warbreaker is heads and Neverwhere is
tails.
tails.
I heard that. Okay.
All right. Oh, shoot. Tails. Oh, it's tails. Okay. It's Neverwhere.
Neverwhere wins. Okay.
We got it. Okay. Whew. All right, guys. I know we all wanted Neverwhere. Sorry, Warbreaker. That sounded so good too. Once I read that chapter, I was super into it. That would be the one that Random House Audio needs to hire me for. Okay, so...
Well, it can come back later.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
I mean, we own these books now, so...
Yeah. No,
they're going to have to get read.
Books have indexes, correct?
Like a table of contents?
That's what I meant.
Yes.
A TOC.
Yes, generally.
I hated
most
making
published
those
works do
freaking...
have table of contents.
Remember making those in school? They'd make us make a freaking table of contents of our entire work that we had done for the entire 6 weeks, and it was always in history class. And you didn't save all.
I remember having
notes,
to do that in junior high.
Coach
but when I got
Robo's
to
freaking class,
high school, I started taking skater classes. Y'all took all the pre-AP and AP courses, and I said, "Fuck that noise."
Yeah, pinche AP classes.
I didn't have to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, dude. So this one does not have myself a TOC, so I'm just gonna flip obnoxiously really close to the microphone until I find a page around 60 or so that has a good cutoff. Oh my God, it's perfect.
It doesn't have a chapter by chapter TOC?
I didn't see one.
Oh, okay.
So what we're going to do, guys, is as far as this book is concerned, chapter 4 starts on page 70.
So 69 is where chapter 3 ends.
I need you guys to read all the way to page 69. And
69.
That's not even 10 pages a day until next week, guys. So your homework for the week,
math checks out,
is to get Neverwhere. I would go to your local Half Price Books, your local any local bookshop. Go to your Barnes and Noble. Support the author straight through the source themselves. That's actually the way I should be recommending. If you're like me, you're gonna go probably through Audible, and you're gonna buy the audiobook version of it. So audiobook listeners, try to restrain yourselves when it says chapter 4. You cut that sucker off and you stop listening, or you restart it and you listen again, because you'll probably be like me and you'll be doing it while you're at work. So you have to listen twice to make sure you get all the details. So you looking at it, Will, on Amazon?
Neverwhere is available on Amazon. You can get it on your Kindle for $9.74. Oh, wow. You can get it hardcover for $12.41, paperback for $10.87, mass market paperback $8.99, audio CD $17.70, and it's available as an audiobook on audible.com.
Awesome. Okay, and Neil Gaiman, I'm sure you can find him everywhere. Great author. If you ever see one of his books, just snatch it up. I've heard great things. So
everywhere
that's why
and Neverwhere.
everywhere and neverwhere. All right, guys. So homework for the week, read to page 69, or if your book is not as funny as ours, read up to chapter 4. Do not read chapter 4. And don't forget your dog ears and timestamps, and we'll see you next week.